Crazily enough, I'm actually old enough to remember buying software in a box. I think the first DAW that I bought was in a shop called Digital Village in Cambridge and would have been Fruity Loops 3, I think, on a CD. In those days you bought it on a disc, you installed it, you did get updates online to newer versions and so on, but that was your license. You purchased it and you can still use it as long as you want. And being a Windows user, it means that I can still, to this day, install very, very old software in compatibility mode and still run it. Sometimes you need a little bit of hackery. Like for a while ago, I wanted to use an Xbox 360 wireless controller and I had to go into a driver and paste a piece of text into the driver text, but it worked and you could do it. Not quite the same on OS, Mac OS, is it? But we'll leave that discussion aside for another day. Still, as a result, I'm quite disturbed by the fashion for subscription software. And as a result, I'd like to suggest a name change, which is from subscription to pay forever. The reason is that pay forever software is actually what most people who call themselves subscription software actually make. There are exceptions. True subscription software, as far as I'm concerned, is where you subscribe to get continuous updates and continuous use of it. But if you have an old project and you want to open it up, you can still open it up. You wouldn't be allowed to, say, change the settings on your plugin. It would be locked at those settings because you're no longer paying a license for it and you'd be stuck on that same version. But you know, you wouldn't be locked out of using it forever. I think that's a reasonable balance of subscription and owning a license. But what most people do, I think should be renamed, for the sake of consumers, pay forever software, because what they want you to do is pay forever. That's the goal. I think all of us have been tricked at some point by a trial sign up where you have to put in a credit card detail and they'll give you a week, a month, maybe even 3 months of a particular bit of software or a service. You forget about it, and then 8 months down the line you realize you spent 90 quid on something you haven't even done anything with, and then when you cancel it you've just got nothing. And this leads to all kinds of tricky, nasty psychological cheating that is there to make you throw good money in after bad. It's the design, the hope in the design of it is that either you forget forever that you subscribed and just keep having your bank account chipped away at by the provider of the service, or that you feel bad about having spent that money already and so, well, I'll just keep spending then. It's an odd psychological pattern, but it's well documented. The good money after bad is part of gambling theory, if I remember right, or game theory, that people will just continue to throw in time or money on things they've already definitely wasted on, because doing otherwise would admit that you were in the wrong in the first place, which is obviously agony that you can possibly do. I do think that there are benefits to the subscription stuff, especially for professionals. If you know that your entire living comes from doing one kind of work, it's not an enormous stretch to say, okay, I'll spend X amount of money a month, write it off against my income, and it's just part of the cost of sale. It's part of the cost of doing business, and that's absolutely fine. Great. It makes sense in that context. But most people who use creative software now, unless it's incredibly high-end stuff, are people who are sort of hobbyists. And somebody who might make, say, 2 tracks of house music a month over the course of a few evenings for fun because they really enjoy doing it and making it themselves and putting it online and what have you, probably doesn't want to spend 60 quid a month on various subscriptions, or as that is in reality, £700 a year or something, or just quick maths, 720, I think, pounds a year. It's a huge amount of money. That's a lot of money for somebody to spend. So it doesn't work for everybody. And in that case, buying the odd plugin here or there as they have spare cash, you buy your DAW and just want to be able to use that forever, buy a few plugins here and there, like really good but inexpensive ones like Waves Factory or something. You can pay $30 here or there, get an amazing effect. Or what's the other chat that I really enjoy? Audio Thing. another really sort of reasonably priced but excellent creative sounding plugins. You buy one of those, you can just use it indefinitely. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. You want the right to use the thing you've bought, but this is going away. But this is affecting everything, not just creative software. By now, everyone will have seen the World Economic Forum meme of the people grinning saying, you will own nothing and you will be happy. But there is a push in that general direction by all manufacturers' products to get a continuous income that's great for shareholders in the accounting department from a thing that you have, whether that be cars. I keep getting adverts to subscribe to a Volvo, and it says, how much would you pay to subscribe to a Volvo? And the answer is nothing. I wouldn't subscribe to a Volvo, but it won't leave me alone. But yeah, that's a perfect example of that shift in consumer products towards the idea that you simply shouldn't own anything and you should just pay continually for a service for the rest of your life while trading hardware or software in and out. The carefulness of the language and the way that the language is designed to make you only be able to think in one way about what you're talking about is what is being used a lot of the time to sort of cheat your mind. And in this case, calling things subscription is often placed alongside other positive connotation words like easy, simplicity, up to date, the best, most current, newest, this kind of thing. It's always presented in a way that you're somehow being given more choice, more freedom, more power, better things, newer things, more exclusive things, when really what's happening is you're just being forced to pay forever for something instead of just buying it and keeping it. Realistically, in a lot of contexts, the subscription model doesn't represent good value for money at all for the consumer. It's definitely great for people who are selling things, especially if they can sort of trick you into doing it when you don't remember. But it doesn't represent good value for money if you're the person paying for it. Another frustrating area for this has been mobile phone applications. I recently upgraded to a newish iPhone from a very old one. And in the process, I went through a lot of apps, and I found a menu in the app store in the iPhone where you can see everything you've ever downloaded. And I scrolled right to the bottom and tried to install some apps that were from a long way back, and some of them just don't work anymore. Some of them have now been changed to something rather classic. And the classic means you bought it once, and because we now want you to pay forever for it, we've killed that off and called it classic. And now if you want the new one, you have to pay us forever. And the most absurd example I saw was a photography filter app. There's millions of those. I don't remember what one it was, but it was a photography filter app where all of the good filters were locked behind a paywall. And that paywall was something like $7 or $8 a month or something. So £90 a year just to use filters. And I might own a phone for, say, 5 years. I was thinking, damn, if I forgot about that, I could be paying £400 or something. And you subscribe, you don't think about it, you pay 400 quid or something, and then you remember, oh, damn it, I've just come to refresh my apps and delete some save space. I paid 400 quid for a phone app to do colourful filters that I forgot about. So I really think there's a lot of sort of dodgy goals behind this that are dressed up in positive language. Subscription often has a massive negative effect on developers as well. I've noticed this from a long way back. I remember when Adobe became Creative Cloud, I'd probably call that the beginning of the end of their products for me. I don't use any of them anymore. I've switched entirely to Blender, DaVinci Resolve, Unreal Engine, and the Affinity Suite, which is amazing, by the way, because it's exactly the same program on the iPad Pro that I use as it is on my desktop PC. I mean, the same program, unlike Adobe's offerings. But that aside, that was the beginning of the end for me. As soon as it went cloud, they seemed to stop focusing on making the core product stable, up to date, and keep up with the speed that you expected from creative software, especially with the GPU acceleration you expected from creative software. They sort of abandoned that and went to getting, it's always got to be a headline-grabbing feature or another piece of software added to the suite so as to appear to have greater value and get people into the pay-forever model, so they just keep spending money. And then I realized I was spending, I'd bought Resolve for something like 270 quid or whatever it was, sort of 7 years ago now, and I've never paid again, and always had a great up-to-date piece of software with very few problems. In the same time, I would have paid thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds for Adobe software, and it's still slow. Premiere crashes constantly. I had to use it on a friend's computer recently. It drove me completely insane. Premiere constantly crashes. It's very slow. It's very illogical. It hasn't been properly updated in a long time, as in the core of it hasn't been updated. We also had to use Photoshop, Illustrator, and After Effects in the same project. Illustrator kept crashing. Photoshop took about 5 minutes to open and kept crashing. And After Effects was comical how slow it was compared to what you can do in Blender for free. So I really think that this kind of subscription model, for a lot of developers, not everyone, but for a lot of them, takes them off the boil. They stop having to convince you to spend that money this year because we've made significant updates to speed, significant updates to quality of life. It's better for your job, and maybe some headline features, and instead moves people onto attracting new customers. It's usually called a new customer business model. It's all about pulling in new people and not about pleasing the customers you already have. Anyway, as usual, let's fight in the comments. How do you feel about it? Do you feel subscription is good value? Do you enjoy it because you can just drop it in the background, forget about it, and you know your software is up to date and good? Or does it drive you a bit mad? And what do you think of my proposed new nomenclature, pay forever? I think for a lot of software, pay forever is a pretty fair term. Some subscriptions are quite honestly laid out, but I think that's becoming the minority these days. That's all for now.